Hey everybody, Dr. Eric Balkavage. I had a new patient consultation this week, and I figured I would kind of cover what the big concern was for this person, and this may help many of you. And that is, why does optimization of thyroid physiology not work very often for people? And so in thyroid world, there are people who tout that their role is to optimize somebody's blood T4 and T3. That's their primary goal. And they do that with thyroid replacement therapy, T4, T3, T3 only, NP thyroid, Armor, whatever it is. They're using thyroid medication to manipulate it. So this new client that I saw, she has spent the last year to year and a half working with somebody who's an optimizer to try and optimize their thyroid physiology to get them to feel normal. And the challenge with this, and I talk about this all the time, is what are you trying to optimize? This assumes that the body forgot how to regulate thyroid hormone on its own. And so the person's concerned, like, I've spent a year and a half trying to optimize my blood levels with thyroid medication, and I still have signs and symptoms. I still don't feel great. We just can't seem to find the optimal dose. And they're coming to me, to say, okay, what do you think the optimal dose is? And my discussion with the person is that what makes you assume that what your body's doing is the wrong thing, that it can't optimize it on its own? And this goes back to the thing I talk about all the time. If somebody was in a state of homeostasis, low stress state, and they just had a gland that didn't work well, I could see that they might need some T4 and some T3 to replace what the thyroid gland can't make. But the thyroid gland only makes about 5 to 10 micrograms of T3 per day. So if they're getting enough T4 in their bloodstream, either from the thyroid gland or from medication, but they have lots of hypothyroid signs and symptoms, and their circulating T3 is low, that should tell us that one of two big things is going on. One, the person is going to have about a 20% reduction in conversion of T4 to T3 because of potentially of some type of polymorphism of the gene that convert T4 to T3. And I think that's less the case. Or that the person isn't in homeostasis. They're in a state of allostasis or excessive cell stress, and so their body isn't broken. That low conversion of T4 to T3 is the adaptive response by the physiology. So they're already in an optimized state for their current stress load, their current state. So the body is doing the right thing. It's slowing down the metabolism. It's reducing the conversion of T4 to T3, not because you're broken, but because that is the adaptive response. And so trying to optimize the blood levels of thyroid hormone, especially T3, and in many cases T4, in that situation, isn't optimization at all, but actually might put the person at greater risk of problem, and may take that person down this slippery slope where they're constantly manipulating thyroid hormone and potentially creating more health issues in a state where the body didn't want more thyroid medication or more thyroid hormone to begin with. So we have this naive concept in the body that the body's always working in the same regulating mode, and that if we just top off the tank, top off the blood levels of certain hormones or micronutrients, that those micronutrients are going to move into the cell and do what we want them to. But the problem is the people who are struggling with chronic health issues, the people who have chronic thyroid issues and thyroiditis and Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, any of these immune-driven disorders, you are not in homeostatic state. Your body's in an allostatic state, meaning there's excessive stress on your system. The body is sensing this as a danger signal. It's increasing immune inflammatory mechanisms. It's slowing down cell metabolism, not because you're broken, but because you're in an adaptive state to find and address the threat. So the downregulation of the thyroid of thyroid hormone reduced T4 to T3 conversion. And in my mind, the reduced thyroid hormone production isn't broken. It's the adaptive response to excessive cell stress. So in an effort to optimize the blood levels of thyroid hormone, you're not going to feel normal because your cells and tissues are still under this cell stress threat response. You may get a hit of where you feel a little bit better, but the body's quickly going to adapt, and you're going to have to keep tinkering with your thyroid medication. Does that mean that some people don't feel more optimal on T4 and T3 medication? No, it doesn't mean that. I mean, if you've put in a lot of work and you've got cleaned up your dietary habits, your GI tract's in great shape, your emotional stress is low, your physical fitness is on point, and you're doing all these things that Dr. Kelly and I talk about in the thyroid debacle really well, then yeah, taking some T4 and optimizing the T3 might make sense. But if you've been doing that for months, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, trying to find an optimized dose of thyroid medication and you can't find it, then you're trying to optimize a system that's not ready to be optimized. The body is doing adaptively what it's supposed to do. And that's why the T4 medication you gets deactivated versus converted to T3. That's why the T3 medication that somebody's giving you gives you a hit of feeling good, and then it doesn't seem to last. And so what we need to do is stop trying to optimize a person who's in an allostatic state and realize that that is the appropriate response. Let me give you an example. The example I use a lot is somebody who's sick. If you're sick and you have a fever, you can say, well, the person's got a fever. I'm going to optimize their temperature by giving them medication to suppress the fever. But does that fix the problem? Is the body really dysfunctional in that state? Or is the fever the body's adaptive response to a threat, to an organism, to a toxin? That may be the adaptive response. So does suppressing the fever when we have an infection help us? Or does suppressing the fever when we have an infection actually compromise the immune system, actually make us more susceptible to the organism and make us more vulnerable? I would argue it probably makes us more vulnerable. Does it make us feel better temporarily? Sure. But is it actually helping the body? No. Is the fever the problem? Is the fever wrong? Well, no, that's part of the body's natural immune response. So I understand that we want to help our patients feel better. I understand that patients want an easy answer to feel better, but oftentimes the answer is not manipulating the chemistry. The answer typically comes down to what's causing the issue and how do I address the root issues. We talk about this all the time in functional medicine. You have to address the root issues. You have to address the root issues. And yet, what we're seeing is way too many people coming in and trying to manipulate thyroid chemistry to optimize the blood levels or to manipulate the cellular levels with excessive levels of replacement therapy and forgetting the principles that they talk about. Like, if the root issue is an infection, why would you want to increase the metabolism? Why wouldn't you let the body do what it naturally needs to do? So there's this kind of oxymoron that's going on in functional medicine where we say, hey, we have to address the root cause, and if we address the root cause, the innate intelligence of the body can repair. And yet we don't really believe that if we're saying, but we need to optimize your thyroid hormone before we've actually even addressed what's creating that cell stress, that cell danger response, and cause the body to do exactly what it's doing. It's decreasing thyroid hormone production, it's decreasing thyroid hormone conversion, not because we're broken, but because that is the appropriate adaptive response under excessive cell stress. If you have any questions, put them below this Thyroid Thursday video. See ya.